are rare, and so are their pilots. In fact, there are more NASA shuttle pilots than there are blimp pilots. How do you fly one of these? Well, basically you fill it with helium. The exception, in the fore and aft sections are airbags called ballonets. These act the same as ballast would in a submarine. Outside air is heavier than helium, so when the pilot pulls the aft lever, it forces the heavier outside air into the tail. This makes the craft nose up. Conversely, when the pilot pulls the fore lever, the outside air is forced into the nose and it noses down. The controls are very similar to that of a normal light aircraft. Stick, up and down, rudder pedals, left and right. In the rear, the elevator and the rudder are larger than they would be on a normal aircraft because it moves slowly. Designer Steve Gardner of Memphis Airships believes his blimp will become the first to be certified in the U.S. since World War II. Steve runs an advertising agency and has always had a passion for dirigibles. What is it that initially attracted you to getting into small blimps?
Once you get over the original fantasy romantic image, you look at the realistic side. You look at the problems that have been over the years with airships. And I think the most immediate market for airships is with smaller ships. I think the market is for advertising, for surveillance, patrol, and those things can be accomplished with a small ship. And the logistics of handling a small ship are so much easier than the big boys.
Under normal conditions, this is easy to fly. But under the windy conditions we're experiencing today, our pilot's going to have to wrestle with these controls. So it's up, up, and away. The EXP-2 is surprisingly maneuverable, considering how clumsy it looks on the ground. Gosh, that's really great. It really brings you back to another era. If you're a romantic and you have $250,000 to spare and a Ferrari doesn't do it for you, a personal blimp may be more your speed.
Brought to you by one of S&K Menswear.
We just bought 50,000 men's suits from America's leading manufacturers. These suits sell for up to $400 at other stores. But this month only, you pay no more than $199.97 during the entire stock suit sale at S&K. Even our very best brand name suits in pure wool are all on sale for under $200. You can't find a better value anywhere. That's my promise.
Shop S&K at Westland Plaza on Odana Road, across from Westtown.
Join the Hole-in-One Club Thursday at 6 and 10.
Another levee gives way as rising floodwaters target the St. Louis area. The likely economic impact of the flood keeps growing and growing. And 38 years of one-party rule come to an end in Japan. This is the CBS Evening News. This is Edie Magnus reporting. Good evening. There is still no relief from Mother Nature in America's heartland. More rain, more flooding, more evacuations, more broken levees along the swollen Mississippi River and its tributaries. And tonight, all eyes are turned to the flood's next potential target, St. Louis. CBS News correspondent Vicki Mabry is there and joins us now. Good evening, Vicki.
Good evening, Edie. The river is rising toward an expected crest of 47 feet here in St. Louis. That is a record. And as it surges southward, many of the surrounding communities are in trouble. There's no time to get out after a levee breaks. The water doesn't wash over in a trickle. It's a wicked, raging torrent that wipes out everything in its path. Despite sandbagging efforts, the Nutwood Levee near Hardin, Illinois, couldn't hold anymore. Thousands of acres of rich farmland are underwater, and pets left behind struggle to find a safe place. Their owners will come back to find their homes flooded, equipment and belongings washed away.
It's astounding. You just realize the magnitude of the strength of the river. It's amazing.
Downstream, St. Louis is protected by a 52-foot flood wall, and the Mississippi River is now the city's biggest tourist attraction.
Basically, we have 50 more minutes to get whatever we want. How long?
In South St. Louis, the race against the tide continues. Krista and Don Arling have owned their home for just a year. It's their first house, and the water is creeping up to the first floor.
This is the end of the line here. We're just doomed.
On the other side of the rising River des Peres, volunteers keep sandbagging, and the Arlings are bitter that help didn't arrive on their side in time.
Our street has been filled with water ever since last Wednesday. And finally, they got to the point where they pulled the plug and said, that's it, we can't pump anymore.
Rennie Deal helped his son evacuate by boat.
I didn't think you'd get this far, but it's here now. There's nothing you're gonna do about it.
Despite the rising water, there's still optimism in communities south of St. Louis.
Hopefully this wall's gonna hold. We're just doing what we can.
A CBS News crew did what it could, rescuing the puppy that was stranded on the farm near the levee break and finding him a good home. Some of the nearby communities are under boiled water orders. Their water treatment plants are in danger, but so far in St. Louis, everything is holding out fine. Edie?
Vicki, there's no, just to be clear, there's no flooding in downtown St. Louis at this time. I know there are lots of rumors circulating as the water rises.
There's no flooding. Tourism officials say they're receiving about 1,000 calls a week from people who think that the animals have been evacuated from the zoo and that the stadium is closed, the Cardinals can't play, but none of that is true. Downtown St. Louis is dry.
All right, Vicki Mabry, thanks very much. In Des Moines, Iowa, efforts to restore running water to some 250,000 people were set back today. A new pump failed. Floodwaters contaminated the city's water treatment plant a week ago, and it will be days before it's back in operation. As Sandra Hughes reports, for some families, running water is the least of it.
The city of Des Moines condemned Rick and Tanya Sheridan's home today.
Unsafe to occupy, so we would like to have you if you have anything that you need to get out at this time.
When the levee broke along the Raccoon River last weekend, about 2 feet of water came roaring through their house. Rick was in the basement right before the wall gave way.
And when that went, it just exploded. The basement it didn't just fall, it just exploded in. That's how much force there was.
Then the dining room floor caved in, dropping the table and chairs. Their oldest son's bedroom looks like this, toys abandoned, furniture destroyed.
This has been our home for 12 years, and it's gone. I just don't know what to say.
Like so many families here in Des Moines, the Sheridans have seen their dream destroyed. It would be too costly to try to repair this structural damage on their home, and they have no choice but to walk away from 12 years of work. They don't have to walk far, however, to find support and comfort.
Our patience, sometimes we're thin, and sometimes we wonder, well, is there going to be any relief? It's raining day after day. Am I ever going to be able to put things back together?
At the Church of God in West Des Moines, they are putting it back together through prayer and a helping hand to parishioners like the Sheridans.
Because there's going to have to be some tearing down and building up.
At a time when people work from sun up to sundown, some found time to come together, to share their pain, dry their tears, and look for the answer to the one lingering question: why did this happen to us? Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Des Moines.
You may not be stacking sandbags or salvaging what remains of your home, but there's a growing consensus that wherever you live, you'll likely feel the effects of this flood. Anthony Mason explains.
With the water still rising on some parts of the Mississippi, it's only an estimate, but damage costs are already put at a staggering $7 to $8 billion. And the people in the Midwest are not the only ones who'll be paying the price. In the rail yards of California, a company that distributes potatoes across the country has 10 rail cars stranded by the floods.
These rail cars are worth anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 each. This situation could be critical for the California potato shippers.
Some of the richest farmland in the world has been swamped by the rains in the Midwest, and economists say that somehow, some way, the effect of the floods will reach all the way to every supermarket shelf in America.
For the average American, this is going to mean higher food prices. It's also going to mean, in many cases, an interruption in the transportation of other goods they might buy. It's not just a local problem, it's a national problem.
Flooding has halted barge travel on the Mississippi, a key means of moving grain through the country. One Louisiana shipping firm reported 200 barges stuck in the north and losses of $100,000 a day.
The fact that most of this grain does come down by barge transportation is causing a major problem for getting this year's harvest out of the United States and on its way to export markets.
President Clinton has promised relief, but the administration is warning the budget is tight.
We also have to recognize, and I think we have to caution the victims, that these programs are designed to try to get people back on their feet. There's no way that any federal program is going to restore them to 100% to what they were before these damages occurred.
But until the waters recede, analysts say, there is no way of knowing how severe the damage really is, or how much of America's economic recovery has been washed away. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the end of a political era in Japan. And Bill Geist reports on a house in Maine that's a genuine prize property.
Oh, guys, my commercial. Listen. Wheat Thins from Nabisco. So much wheat, so smart to eat. Intelligent crackers. Wheat Thins pack a ton of hearty taste into a little snack that's smart to eat. See, that's smart. With a big crunch baked through it. Sounds very snackable.
You are deliciously correct, oh maternal one.
Wheat Thins, the smart little snack that's big on taste.
You couldn't have said it better yourself.
Zap!
Why Centrum Silver? Because you're over 50 and you're just hitting your stride. Centrum Silver vitamins. Because the latest scientific research about changing nutritional needs after 50 is built in. Centrum Silver. It's a great time to be silver.
It kills the germs that cause bad breath. It fights plaque. It battles the gum infection, gingivitis. It's Listerine antiseptic. It's there to protect you.
That works. There's no cleaner clean than Prel. And now the original cleaner Prel Green is back. Work. Clean. There's no cleaner clean.
Prel Clean. After nearly 40 years, Japan's scandal-ridden ruling party finally tasted defeat in today's parliamentary elections. Prime Minister Miyazawa may be about to announce his resignation, but his party still might be able to hold on to power. James Hattori has more from Tokyo.
As he voted this morning, Japanese Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa said his liberal Democrats would have to crawl their way back from a political abyss. They didn't quite make it. 38 years of domination by the LDP came to an end today, with just 61% of Japan's eligible voters casting ballots. Losers can blame the rain or perhaps the sumo tournament on TV. Our colleagues had a very hard time, Miyazawa says, and I feel sorry for them. There was no sorrow among the former Liberal Democrats who today tasted victory as candidates of new reform parties. They are the architects of rebellion against the scandal-ridden LDP, who lost a no-confidence vote last month and had to call this election.
The younger generation of politicians these days listen to their constituency rather than the party boss. That is happening right now.
But this is a revolution still in the making. The reform parties, if they are to seize control, must forge a coalition among themselves or with other minority parties to elect a prime minister of their choosing. It's unclear if they'll be able to pull that off. The Liberal Democrats are very much in the game if they can find support for their own coalition or if the reform movement doesn't gel. Any way you stack it, a lot of politicking, which could distract the next government from a comprehensive agenda.
We might see a one-issue cabinet oriented toward reform. In that sense, a kind of provisional government.
Whichever coalition comes to power, it will be without a clear political mandate. possibly leaving the next prime minister at a disadvantage dealing with the powerful Japanese bureaucracy while trying to decide critical issues like trade policy with the U.S. James Hattori, CBS News, Tokyo.
Here at home, FBI Director William Sessions vowed today he'll fight for his job. It's a matter of principle, Sessions said as he left the hospital after treatment for a broken elbow. Sessions has been accused of ethical improprieties, and President Clinton is reported ready to fire him as early as tomorrow. In Arkansas, President Clinton gave Dr. Jocelyn Elders a public gesture of support, throwing his arm around his controversial pick for Surgeon General before they flew back to Washington together. Earlier, Elders resigned as Arkansas's health chief. She has been under fire by conservatives for receiving both state and federal pay. Mr. Clinton is putting the final touches on his administration's new policy on homosexuals in the military. The policy he is expected to unveil tomorrow won't be the one he promised, and it has few supporters in either camp. Jim Stewart has details.
Back from a weekend of dealing with a natural disaster, President Clinton is expected tomorrow to confront a problem of his own making. It began months ago with